I never ever break laws, but I break every rule. And when I did my personality assessment, the guy who's a pro at reading them said, "To you, rules are just suggestions." And I thought that was like a perfect descriptor for me.
All right, I've got Eric Malka here. Eric and I met a few years ago, I think pre-pandemic. And even though I know Eric really well, I have my trusty Chat GPT bio. We're total transparency here. I was going to admit that I spent hours on this, but instead I'm just going to say the truth because Eric and I are all about speaking truths. I couldn't lie to him. So I threw it into Chat GPT. And here you go, Eric. So you got to correct the record here. Let's see if the robot's right. Okay. You ready for this? 100 words or less. All right. So today's guest is none other than Eric Malka, a trailblazer who turned a $12,000 investment. I believe he sold his car. Got to verify that. Into the art of shaving, a men's grooming empire sold for $60 million to Procter & Gamble. Now at the helm of the innovative beauty brand Ingredients with his lovely wife. Eric's entrepreneurial journey extends beyond his own ventures. As a seasoned investor and advisor, he's seen the pitfalls that can ensnare entrepreneurs. Eric joins us today to share his insights on these common traps and his proven strategies. Oh man, pressure's on. Proven strategies. You didn't know you were going to be teaching a college course here in this. For untangling yourself to achieve success, prepare for a deep dive into his wealth of experience and wisdom. ChatGPT thinks very highly of you.
This is my new bio. Can you email it?
Yeah. Hey, for a small fee, I will send that over to you, sir.
I like it.
Okay, was anything in there untrue? That's the first thing. Is let's see if ChatGPT was accurate.
No, it's spot on. Spot on.
The $12,000 was a car, right? You sold a car to cash in to make an investment.
Yeah, that doesn't happen every day.
It doesn't. All right. Before we go back in time, this episode's a little bit different because the Untrapped Entrepreneur is about interviewing entrepreneurs that have trapped themselves and then untrapped themselves, kind of generally speaking. So try to give some insight for people that are growing their businesses and maybe not spending enough time with family or friends or spirituality or their physical health, getting trapped in their businesses. But today's a little bit different because Eric, I think you've done a really great job from the beginning. And we talked about this before the show of trying to design your business around the important things in your life. So the take that I want to look at today is you've been investing, advising companies. You see a lot of these young entrepreneurs and old ones alike fall into some of these traps. And I think you've got a really good perspective on seeing it from the outside looking in, providing some advice. And so I'd love to hear not only about your entrepreneurial journey, but also from an investor standpoint, what you're seeing people do and maybe how some of our audience here can avoid some of those traps. Okay. So first on the $12,000 investment, go back in time when you started Art of Shaving. For those of you that may not have known about Art of Shaving, a brand that really revolutionized the men's grooming industry. And as you know, both Eric and I are in that space. But 1996, take us back in time. How'd you get the company started? What's the $12,000 all about?
Well, prior to that, the Art of Shaving was not my first company, and the one prior to that was a major failure where I lost everything, and I was a little bit shell shocked. I was a little traumatized. I thought my entrepreneurial journey has just come to a screeching halt. I'm never going to make it. Fortunately, I have a brilliant wife that has she wanted to start a business. I was just working at a dead-end job in the men's grooming industry. And I was, I had no money. I got a job to pay the rent, right? I mean, you fall from grace as an entrepreneur, you just dust yourself up and get a job and pay the rent. But she wanted to start a business. And I'm always willing to go there. So we came up with this idea, I said maybe we have enough money to open a tiny little store, and I can get products from maybe my employer who sells these great brands from England. And I knew I had some equity in my car. Back in 1996, $12,000 was worth a little bit more than it is today. So, in
Mhm.
relative terms, I don't know how much that would be today, but it's probably not that much either, but it may be 50 or 75,000 today's money. Long story short, we went out and found a store on 62nd Street. Actually, my wife found it. She walked the Upper East Side for 6 hours to find a location. Mind you, I did not know her that well back then. We were together for, less than 2 years. So, and she was 22 years old. I didn't realize she was such a powerhouse. But that day, I kind of realized, like, wait a minute, who does that, right? 6 hours walking the streets of New York City. And I think I just told her, listen, if you want to open a business, you need to find a location. So don't harass me. Go find a location. And then I just forgot about it. It was kind of a brush off. I was actually in London. I don't want to take too much of your time, but this is a funny story. I was in London for my job, and I called her from the airport that night, and I completely forgot about this whole conversation about finding a location. And I called her and she says, "Oh, hi, I found the store." I said, "What?" You know, I found a location on 62nd Street in Lexington. Here's the number. I'm like, "What?" So again, shooting before asking questions, I just picked up the phone and dialed the number from Heathrow Airport and spoke to this older gentleman who said, "I can show you the space right now." I didn't know this at the time, but he was desperate. This was a location where 7 businesses failed before us. It was 200 square feet on the side street with no foot traffic. And I said, "No, I'm sorry. I'm in London on business." I didn't realize I was telling him. He thought I was like this financial mega star
Yeah.
trying to open a little store for his trophy wife to keep her busy. So he got all excited about us. And the next day we signed, we went to see the space, and we signed the lease with a guy. He didn't even check our credentials.
Hey, that's the best posturing ever. I'm going to use that next time, by the way. I'm doing a business deal as, hey, sorry I'm late. I'm calling from the Heathrow Airport in London, doing deals in the UK.
I mean, sometimes, it was not a ploy, but it worked magically. I mean, it couldn't have been planned better. If I was a con artist, it would have been the best angle.
This reminds me of one of the first traps I think that entrepreneurs can get into. I want to get your perspective on this. It didn't sound like you overanalyzed the deal. The exact opposite. It was like a ready, fire, aim. That's what I'm picking up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
One of the traps, it seems, with entrepreneurs that you could potentially fall into is it's like perfect is the enemy of good. Like you just need to get started. It's not going to be perfect. If you do enough analysis, there's never a reason to start a business. It's too risky. It's not worth it. Is that where you were in that early times? Is like you just said, "Let's do it. It feels
Yeah.
right," or what pushed you into actually getting it started?
My wife. But it seems to be a trend. She always pushes me, and I do it. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's get it done. But it's funny you say that because we went to ask people. We knew we were friendly with a restaurateur that was across the street from that location. So we went to see her and we said, "How's the business on this street? We want to open a shaving store." And she says, "Oh, it's horrible. There's no traffic. Blah, very negative." We asked my father-in-law who was a businessman, and we said, "We want to open a little store. What do you think?" He's like, "Oh, that's a horrible idea, selling shaving cream." We asked like 3, 4 people. So my first decision was telling my wife, let's not listen to anyone ever again. Let's just do what we want. But it's true that if you think about it a lot as an entrepreneur, you shouldn't do it because the odds are against you anyways. You know, Failure is more common than success. So the big realization for me and the luck of having failed miserably before this venture was that I was overwhelmed by my aspirations. I wanted to create a humongous business. I wanted to have a humongous success. And it was overwhelming to the point of being frozen. And especially coming out of a failure and having no money, I felt like it was an unsurmountable mountain. And that's when I realized that why don't we just start a tiniest of businesses with, a tiny store with products on consignment. My wife runs it. We open it with $15,000 or less. And I think that was an epiphany that I didn't realize at the time that I've developed nowadays, which is, uh, think big, but start small is really what I preach to startups. You're gonna have to figure it out in the early years. There's gonna be a lot of mistakes, and you want to do that under the microscope. Start really small, get your bearings, and then you can always scale faster later.
Mm-hmm. What areas of the business though? And I agree with you. And I jumped in 2008, got an SBA loan 2 weeks before Lehman Brothers collapsed. My banker's calling me saying, "Hurry up and spend the money. The whole world's falling apart." I was 25 years old. I have an extreme amount of tolerance for risk. I have seen people fall flat on their face and do things over and over again because they have this mindset of, like at some point something's going to hit. And it could be looked at as a little bit foolish because they're not doing diligence. So what type of diligence, even if you're wired to be an entrepreneur, you're going to take risk, you have no issue with that. What areas do you do the most amount of diligence in, even though the odds are against you? Or would you say, hey, if this and this happens, don't do that deal? It doesn't make sense. When does it not make sense? And what type of diligence do you do to figure that out?
It's hard, I try not to go there when I mentor or coach people unless it's really overt. I mean, unless there's like yellow flags on the field, I'll you know, I try not to clip people's wings because I don't want to be that. I don't want to assume, I don't want to tell Elon Musk that creating a car company, electric, is a bad idea. It's been tried before. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not that mentor. I let, I don't mind people failing because that is part of the process. You have to be ready to fail and lay flat on your face if you're going to make it as an entrepreneur. So I try to give people, when I coach people, I try to give them principles more than advice, things that are time tested principles that can be applied 100 years ago or 100 years from now. And their dreams and aspirations and their business model, it's really up to them. I'm not here to teach you what you're doing. You might have an idea. I don't even understand most of the people I coach. I don't try to get into their business. That's what they're supposed to bring to the conversation. They're supposed to know what they're doing. And I think I'm on my 12th or 15th company right now. So some of them were successful, some were not. And it's part of being an entrepreneur, I think. And you said something interesting, which is that you were 25. I was 28. There is something to be said about being young and foolish. And when you're young, you can afford to take higher risks. If you have 4 kids, you're 40 years old, you have a steady job, you're paying the rent, it's harder to go out and say, I'm going to quit my job, start a business, put everybody at risk. But when you're 25, you got nothing to lose, man. I had nothing to lose at 28. $12,000 I would have blown over the next year or two, just nonsense. So for me, that wasn't risk. I was taking risk. I was taking zero risk. I took risk with the art of shaving later on when it became a real business, and I doubled down and I doubled down again and I doubled down again. I was risking what I had built up to that point. That was risky. But that was measured risk because the business was already successful. I just had to scale it, right? But when I sold my car and invested that money in opening a store and signing a lease on a shell company, I mean, that was zero risk in my opinion. I get no credit for that.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that. I felt the exact same way at 25. The rest of the world is looking at me saying, this is an extreme amount of risk. My old boss said it makes no sense. What are you doing starting a business you have no experience in, the worst economy ever? I had a son with a major, open heart surgery that happened 6 months prior. And I looked at it the same way you did, as if I fail and lose everything, I can go and get a job. I had good GPA, had good work experience. I can go and get a job.
Yeah.
You brought up something, though, that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I want to get your perspective on this. I think it's another trap, but it's a trap before you become an entrepreneur, and one that maybe prevents you from being an entrepreneur is you have this 40-year-old that's got some kids, a good job, he's paying the mortgage, but he's always dreamed of starting a business. And I picture these people like on the football field, they're on the sidelines and they're watching the game and they love the game and they want to get in the game, but it's too risky to do so. And I've always had this passion for wanting to pull those people into the game and go, hey, it's not too late. And I know that they're in a different point in life, but they have this desire. And I remember my mom telling me years ago that she always wanted to start a business. She was looking at me as a 25-year-old kid going, oh, Benjamin, I always wanted to start a business, but I had 2 kids, single mom. I had to get an education. I had to work. And that's always stuck with me, that these regrets that people have, later in life. What advice would you give somebody that came to you as take that 40-year-old with 4 kids and good income and good work experience? It's like, Eric, I want to do what you do. I want to get into business for myself.
For me, it's all about prioritization of your values, what matters to you in your life at that point. When I was 28, I was obsessed with getting out of poverty. I mean, that was my core value. My number one value at 28 was that. At 40, it was my kids and my family. Those values change over time. Your mom made a decision that responsible people make, which is I'm not in a position, I have to choose between being a responsible parent or pursuing my aspirations. And I admire people that are responsible, that go against what they want for the better of other people in their care, So I would say have your values straight. Right now, my values are very clear. My top priorities in my life are very, very clear. They're not the same that they were when I was in my 20s. Completely different. Health is number one right now. I'm in my 50s. It's always been an important topic for me, but health is number one. It's more important than my kids, because without that, I don't get to enjoy my kids. I don't get to enjoy my wife. So health becomes, selfishly, my health becomes more important than my own children, which anyone would say is the most important thing in their lives. But, you have to have these values and priorities set very clearly. If your priorities is to build your career, something's going to give. There's always a price to pay, and it's not the cost of startup. You're going to maybe sacrifice your health. You're going to sacrifice seeing your kids. You might not put, I put my kids to bed every night until they were 10 years old, except for a few days when I was traveling. But I've done it every single night. I was with one of my 2 kids. My wife was with one of our 2 kids. That was important to us. And, you're going to pay a price. Maybe you're going to have to forego that. And if you're okay with that trade-off, then go all in, man. But I've seen so many professional guys admire from the sidelines the entrepreneurs. I worked with P&G, and they're all, admiring of the mascot, the entrepreneur in the hallways. The biggest trap of these guys is the comfort of their plan A. I had no plan B. I had no options. It was, even you had an education, and I had no options. It was make it or have a dead end job for a long time. And I was not employable anyways. That was the longest job I've maintained for, I think, a year.
It seems like the most successful entrepreneurs have been fired many times, have certainly failed many times, but
I've been fired. I had one job and I got fired after 90 days by the president of the company. I think I missed one of our conference calls with him. I was having coffee with Miriam on South Beach. Yeah, I'm not employable. I can't take orders. I couldn't do karate because I can't have a master. The guy
Yeah.
was a master. He was my master. He was my sensei. I was like, no, I can't do
No, I
that. No,
can't do. I'm
I can't
out.
do that. I'm out. This is beyond me.
I had this guy I worked for in college, Cody Chambers. I got to look up if he's still around, but he said the most beautiful thing to me that has stuck with me forever, and I will never, ever forget it. It really defined, I think, who I am as a person. And he looked at me, and I'm working with him in this internship, and he was a UPS driver that retired and wanted to start his own motivational speaking company. And he was doing personality assessments for corporations and all this stuff. But he said, Ben, after working with me for a couple of months, he said, Ben, there are three types of people in this world. There are people that follow the rules, there are people that break the rules, and there are people that make the rules. And he's like, you, sir, are someone who makes the rules. And so
That's a great compliment.
I think entrepreneurs can identify, with that assessment, is that we tend to be the ones that make the rules.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the hammer and the nail, right? Which one you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit harsher, but I agree. And I wouldn't be here if I followed the rules. I mean, I have a very simple motto, which is I never break laws. I never, ever break laws, but I break every rule. And when I did my personality assessment, the guy who's a pro at reading them said, to you, rules are just suggestions. And I thought that was like a perfect descriptor for me.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
I thought that was really clever, but it described me better than I could myself.
We're rule breakers, and it gets us into trouble. And it's high risk, but potentially high return. And I want to, before I change topics here, I want to make a note that there's so many of these entrepreneurs out there and Instagram influencers and everything that's like, never work for somebody, make your own rules, do your own thing. But the reality is life, and whether you believe in God, the universe, whatever, is there's perfect complements everywhere in this world where if we were all rule breakers and all entrepreneurs, nothing would get done. If we were all rule followers, nothing would get done. If we were all rule breakers, nothing would get done. And so for every one of these men or women that are out there willing to make their own rules, in order to make that person successful and make it work, you've got to have, others. You got to have people there that complement that. And so I want to acknowledge all of the employees, the team members,
Sure.
Everybody out there that make these companies work. It's because of them. It's because of that puzzle piece fitting together that makes it all work.
Yeah, it's what Jim Collins talks about in Good to Great. I mean, you're all in the bus together, but who's sitting where? And somebody's got to drive the bus, right? Not everybody's a driver. I have two sons. You have kids. You know this. One son is a rule breaker. One son is a rule follower.
Mm-hmm.
One is an entrepreneur, and one is going to be, a lawyer, a wealth manager, or something like that, right? There's nothing wrong. It's just the way they're built. The problem is if the rule breaker tries to become, a guy that follows the rule in his career, he's gonna fail miserably.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, if he tries to be an entrepreneur, he's not gonna sleep at night from, all the stress. So if you understand your lane and you go into your lane, that's your best chance of achieving the most success, whether you're that rule breaker or not. You just have to know who you are and go down that route. Nothing wrong with it. There is no, for me, there is no bad jobs or, shameful careers. I mean, I admire people that just take pride in everything they do,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, I want to go back to, and I've started reading this book, Family First Entrepreneur by Steve Shu. And the very first chapter says, escaping the entrepreneur trap. And I reached out to Steve and I'm like, dude, you have no idea the podcast I was about to start. Or, and this was a week ago. And I'm like, I'm starting a podcast. It's all about this, chapter 1. So I'm going to have him on the show. But family first entrepreneur, going back to what you talked about early on, is just having this plan to, invest in your business, maybe take a pause on family, do family later. It seems like you were really thoughtful about not falling into some of these traps where entrepreneurs are type A. I'm going to do it all. I'm going to do it all right now. I'm going to do it all well. I'm going to be in perfect physical health. I'm going to have a perfect relationship with my wife. I'm going to have a perfect business, perfect spirituality. Give me some thoughts on how that, what's your perspective on that? Can it all be done at the same time?
It can all be done. It just depends your situation. Let me give you some background about why I did what I did. My father wasn't around, right? So I was working with my wife. If you have a wife that wants to build a family and owns that business, because it is a business, it is a big job, to be the CEO of the house, then you can put all your energy into building the family business, right? But my wife and I worked together. We had no one to take care of the kids. So that became our situation. Everybody's situation is different. You have to use your situation. It's like a balance sheet, your situation in life. You have to use your balance sheet to your best of to the most that it offers as an asset. For me, not having a dad around made me want to be a dad around. you know, Having a wife partner made me not want to have neglected kids by their parents. My family fell into hard financial troubles when I was 14 years old. That was a little traumatic for me. While my friends were all wealthy and could afford great stuff as we're getting to the teenagers, I was broke. So those are things that were formative that made me do what I did. Now I look back on it, with more maturity, and I can understand why I did what I did. But you have to assess your situation, take advantage of your situation. If you have a wife that just wants to have beautiful family and she wants to dedicate her life to that, or a husband for that matter, maybe it's the wife that goes to build a family business and the husband stays home with the kids. That's fine. What I think is not fine is neglecting your health, neglecting your kids, neglecting your relationship, neglecting your business, neglecting your community. That's a problem. But if you're able to do it all, by all means, just go for it, man. It's a short runway, man. Don't wait around.
That's right. Go for
it. Don't start planning stuff for 10 years from now, man. That doesn't work in my book anymore. Which is the biggest trap. By just throwing it out there, is the thing I see the most with entrepreneurs is we are short-term thinkers. We don't think long-terms. And let me tell you, there's bad stuff around the corner. There's crisis happening all the time in this world. There's something bad happening. I don't want to be a negative thinker, but I've had this happen so many times. And I tell people, you don't know what's around the corner. Be careful. I think that's a big trap that you don't expect.
It's the word that comes to mind when I'm hearing you talk is discipline. You had discipline around some of these decisions that you made, and you were able to pull back and say, I want a family. I love you. I want kids, but not right now. We've got to focus here. And discipline's hard for entrepreneurs a lot of times too.
I don't associate myself with that word when I think about those decisions, because those decisions I kind of made unconsciously. I think the big word for me was action. I think a lot of people mistake the relationship. We think we are going to become inspired, then have an idea, and then take action. And what I've learned is that it's the opposite that works. It's really the action that is the catalyst, no matter what that action is. It's the action that brings you to having a clear picture of what you want and then becoming inspired by it. So I think that's something to reverse engineer in people's minds. And for me and my wife, she's the same as I am. We were action Jacksons. You're like, let's open a store. Let's go. Let's do it. Call from London. We weren't thinking. We were not thinking. When we started our company, actually our youth and ignorance was a blessing. We were lucky because if you were to do disciplined focus groups and market research, you would know that men were looking for a plastic tube of shaving cream and a plastic razor in their gym bag so that they can shave with the steam of the shower at their favorite, club. We did the exact opposite. We created a complicated four-step systems with glass bottles and fancy razors and brushes, extra steps, and that turned out to be a magic bullet. But that was complete coincidence. I mean, we couldn't have done the opposite of what consumers wanted at the time. And I think that's because we were just doing what we wanted, what we liked, and we were taking actions without thinking that much about it. We had just had good instincts. We were very lucky, good timing. A lot of luck, man, a lot of luck. I mean, do not discount luck in the process, which is somewhat created by actions and hard work and resilience that creates luck. But luck is a huge component of people that are going to sit in front of you talking about their success and having ChatGPT say such lovely things about us. There's a lot of luck involved with that, man.
Hey, speaking of ChatGPT, I put in my own name and it's like, I have no idea who Ben Davis is. So I'm just aspiring as I create this podcast to have ChatGPT know who I am.
How many Benjamin Davises are there in the world? I think
right.
That might be the problem. They don't realize there's only one of you.
It's a good point. I'm taking a note here to change my name. There's probably not a Ben Malka.
You might be more specific.
That's it. I'm going to have you adopt me and I'm going to be Ben Malka after the show. Will that work?
Hey, man.
Hey,
you're a good kid. I'll take you.
That's right. I can pay my own mortgage. You don't have to worry about anything.
You're a great kid. I don't have to. Yeah, I'll take you in a heartbeat, man. You're like a contributor.
That's right. All right, let's talk about the investor side of things. You've advised a lot of entrepreneurs. You've even started your own company again recently. Outside looking in, what are you seeing right now are the biggest traps that entrepreneurs are falling into when they call you for help, or you're seeing it before they do? What are some of the common things that you're seeing right now?
Their weaknesses catch up to them. There's two things. And this is how I pitch my services, by the way, because I'm a strategic investor. I basically say that invariably people make mistakes. You can't avoid making mistakes in life. Not every decision is perfect, but when you're young and less experienced, you're more likely to make more mistakes. And my job is to help you minimize those mistakes through my experience. I'm not going to teach you how to do your business. You're better at that than I am. You're better at running your business. You're better at understanding your business. But if I can help you with methodology and principles that are, tested through my experience in life to make better decisions and to avoid unforced errors, your chances of winning bigger, faster, better is increased. That's what I do. So it's about not avoiding the pitfalls of entrepreneurs and your weaknesses catching up to you. When you look at a business 5 years down and they've been successful and they call you because they need help, you can look at the business and say, okay, this part of the business is going really well. That's your strength. That's what you're good at. And this part is suffering. That's what you're actually not good at. In my case, and in many cases, when you see very successful business, even Google and Apple, they were not started by one dude. They were started by two or more people. And that's because they complement each other. That's how successful businesses happen. You can hire complements, what we call hiring your weakness. You can have a partner that complements your weakness. My wife and I were complete complementary skills, perfect complementaries. But when you don't have that, I find that entrepreneurs, that catches up to them.
So is there a time in some of your consulting work and coaching where you're saying, look, man, you need to hire somebody else, to pick up the slack, hire a freelancer even, or outsource some of this. You shouldn't be doing finance. You're terrible at it. You need to get a bookkeeping service, whatever it is. Is that coming up quite frequently where they're trying to do everything all the time?
Yeah. I mean, entrepreneurs, it's hard to transition from small to medium size, right? Um, what you might call mom and pop, but you can see businesses when they reach five. I'm involved with some. They reach 5 to 10 million range, and it doesn't. What it takes to get from 0 to 5 is not what it takes to get from 5 to 20, right? It's a different animal. So if you can't reinvent yourself, and usually your business is basically the ceiling of your business is your own ceiling personally, as far as your capability, your maturity. If you're not growing as an individual, professionally and personally, your business will not grow if you're running it. I believe that truly. I was almost catching up. I was learning as that's my big thing is learning. I'm obsessed with learning, and I'm learning about things that are practical about what I want to achieve and what I don't know yet that I need to know to go to the next level. And to answer your question, how I remedy that is by that's what I pitch. I mean, I bring in a small check and a lot of guidance. I call it walking with the founders, right? I get into I don't roll up my sleeve and become an operator, but I understand the business by being involved with it to the point where I can walk with them and support them in their journey by being the soundboards, by opening doors, by telling them how things work. Look, just a simple example is you get to the point where you need to raise money. You haven't been trained for that. You've never done that. You're likely to make a lot of mistakes. This is a time when you're going to get eaten alive. And you might not realize it until exit when you realize you signed documents that, made you depend on these guys. I help entrepreneurs that I invest in avoid that. So yeah, I remember when I became a CEO, it was 2005 or six. It was 10 years into my company. All of a sudden, I had a full management team of amazing individuals that I had recruited. And I went into my office, closed the door, and I didn't know what I was going to do that day. I had nothing to do. I spent a couple of days like that. I had no job. I wasn't doing production. I wasn't running sales. I wasn't running finance. I wasn't running, supply chain. Um, and then I realized I said, "Oh, wait a minute! I just became a CEO. I can do the stuff that I can start grow." And we almost tripled the company from that point on in 3 years when I became a CEO. I was always a CEO. I said it on my business card, but that was really
Hey, so that's fascinating. I want to dive into that real quick on what did you start focusing on when you kind of delegated out all these responsibilities? What moved the needle?
growth, leadership. These guys were driving the train. I was laying the tracks. That's what I was doing. Creating a new vision for the company, making deals, raising money, taking care of my most important people, whether they were investors, bankers, customers, employees. I made sure those relationships were really solid. We raised money and I started making deals and I started leading the charge and had them execute behind me at a higher level that I was able to in each of those functions. They were pros. One guy was a pro at running retail. One guy was a pro at supply chain and operations. Did it so much. I did it well enough to get by to that point, right? When I couldn't afford a management team, but I started realizing I was now a CEO. I had the time to really focus on the business, not in the business, right?
Yep.
I didn't have to worry about all these little things.
Doing the things that only you could do or what you do in order of magnitude better than everybody else. Hey, so normally I send a package over to our guest and have them partake in putting stuff on their face and their body and their hair and everything else. But I knew that if I tried to send you anything, you'd throw it in the trash because you're really proud of the products that you
No,
make.
come on. Come on.
You are very proud of the products you make, which I want to talk about as well. But normally I send a package of Rascal products. And so this is our sponsor here, along with Eric's company. I'll tell you about in a second. But our Rascal Ponce's Eye Cream or Ponce, if you're speaking it the right way. Do you remember Ponce de Leon? Ponce de Leon.
Yes, I lived in Puerto Rico for 5 years, don't forget. So I used to live near Ponce de Leon Boulevard.
Oh, there you go. Well, he discovered the fountain of youth.
Oh, that's funny.
So hence the reason for the Ponce eye cream. So
did you get that from ChatGPT?
I did not. That was before ChatGPT existed. First podcast episode I've ever heard of where people are putting eye cream on their faces, especially dudes. But
especially look, dudes
taking care of
but
our
this
skin.
This is what we're doing, you and I mean, I started it, you pick up the baton, but we're giving men permission to groom,
Yeah.
It was a taboo for a while, and we've given men permission to groom.
Yes,
we are. Permission granted, everyone.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Let's talk about ingredients, because I know you put some stuff on your face, your own stuff on your own face every day. You've got a face serum. You've got all kinds of products that are clean beauty. Tell us a little bit about ingredients. And I know why you started it, because you two cannot help but start new things. And
again, I started because my wife was nudging me. She was like, I want to start a new brand. I want to start. I said, all right, we'll do it. It's always her pushing me into doing things.
Don't get me started here. My wife's in the other room. And I think she can hear me right now, so I'm not going to say anything bad. But I hear you, and I'm with you on.
For me to start ingredients, I needed to find motivation. When I was young, I was obsessed with making money. Right, that was my motivation, my fire. I lost that fire big time. So my motivation with ingredients was really my true calling, I think, in life, and that I'm focused on, is my purpose of trying to really promote natural health out there, and reducing toxicity, which has become so overwhelming in our society, especially in America. And that is really, ingredients is a purpose-driven brand that's meant to show the world that you can create products without any synthetic ingredients, any man-made petroleum-based ingredients. And we wanted to really, how do you get noticed in a category that is so overly saturated? I mean, anyone can create their own brand of products right now. It's so easy. What we did is we really wanted to bring ingredients to the forefront. I don't know if you can see it well, but our claim to fame for this brand is that we are radically transparent. We're exposing our exact formulation on the front of the bottles for consumers to really be able to make decisions about what goes on and in their bodies from a personal care standpoint. So we're 100% plant-based, zero petroleum ingredients, no water added, or no water dilution. It's all active ingredients, 8 ingredients or less in high concentrations to maximize efficacy. And we're sustainable. We're really respectful of the planet as much as a consumer product can be, using glass bottles and post-recycled materials like aluminum and PCR paper. Our ingredients are all fair trade and organic whenever possible. So that's a little bit about us, and we make them for humans. Men, women. It's 6 years and older is really our thing, and we're radically transparent, as I said before. That's a little about ingredients.
Awesome.
Trying to change the world, man.
One beauty product at a time.
Yeah. We don't like the industry standards that we've been a part of, and a lot of people don't know this, including ChatGPT, that the art of shaving was a botanical, it was a plant-based and essential oil-based formula brand. At the time, we didn't have the technology to go 100% like we do today, but we were about 98% natural, sometimes 100%, sometimes 96% natural. That was a big part of what we did. And we didn't promote it because men really didn't care about, where the ingredients came from. But that was always part of our DNA. We've always been really into high quality ingredients, what we put in our body, what we eat, what we put in our products, and therefore we call this company after what's inside the bottle, ingredients, to really change the mindset. Consumers have been conditioned to think that expensive serums are higher quality and that scientific chemicals will deliver best results for anti-aging. All these things couldn't be further from the truth, and we're trying to demystify that whole major bubble, which is not an easy feat, not an easy task, especially when you want to enjoy your life a little bit
Yeah,
more.
especially when you're Mr. Family First now. So,
well, my kids are growing up.
What's the website name on ingredients, real quick?
Ingredientswellness.com.
Ingredientswellness.com. All right. Well, you can go to ingredientswellness.com. You can go to rascalman.com for the fountain of youth, Ponce's eye cream. Eric, let's wrap up here, and really appreciate you spending time with me. And one of the things I want to wrap with is you and I went to dinner recently. And one of the things that I think you're really good at, and I wanted to acknowledge you for, is asking really good questions. I think that's, if you're looking for a coach or a consultant or a mentor, we were at dinner and I'm telling you some of the things I'm doing. And you asked me this question, you go, do you think you're doing too much right now? And I'm like, no, I don't think I'm doing too much. And then on the ride home, I go, I think I'm doing too much, because I know when Eric asked me this question.
No, it was a fair question. I'm just.
Yeah, but you know what? I ended up canceling one thing that I was going to do. And it wasn't a huge thing, but it's one of those where it's going to take hours away from what really matters to me. And like, this podcast really matters to me right now. I want to do it. It's intrinsically motivating to hear from our guests and to help other entrepreneurs. But just asking that one question helped me cross something off my list and just say no to it. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And
good.
As we look to untrap ourselves as entrepreneurs, as having people around us like Eric, a mentor, a friend, someone that's just willing to ask the right question, give you candid feedback, tell you the truth, is one strategy to untrapping yourself. If you can just have one person around you, we can do a heat check and go, hey, you know me really well. I trust you. I know you'll tell me the truth. What do you think about this situation? What do you think about how I'm living my life right now? If you have the courage, the vulnerability, and that person around to ask that could change the trajectory of your next day, week, month, or life.
100%. And likewise, listen, I learned so much from everyone that I have dinner with. I don't waste my time with people that are not going to bring something to the party. I learned from you. I've learned things from you over and over again since we've met. And I only, I tell this to all the guys that, praise me as their mentor or coach or whatever, which is very sweet of them, is that I take as much as I hope I give out there. That's really what it's about. Young entrepreneurs have so much to offer, guys that are at my age group, at my stage of the career, right? It's a two-way street, basically.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love it. Well, thanks, man, for spending some time with me. It's been great getting to know you over the last many years, and I know our audience here is going to get a lot from this talk. So until next time, my friend.